Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad that you guys were able to jump in and join us today. I am so excited to introduce Tina Parker. You guys, Tina Parker has a really cool message for us today. One of the things that she's so passionate on speaking about is one of my personal favorite topics, and that is showing up and being so authentic and so genuine, and really taking that and tackling it from the perspective of leadership, right? Because whether we're real estate agents, team leads, broker owners, whatever the case may be, right? We are leaders in our community with our clients, with our team, with our brokerage. We are all leaders. And it takes such a huge step of courage to be able to show up as yourself and to present yourself within that. You guys, she has a really cool history behind her. She is the founder and CEO of Lead Outside the Lines. She is a TEDx speaker. I highly encourage you guys looking her up. Go jump in, go listen to her TEDx speeches. They are really motivational and so well done. She does have a coaching and a speaking platform, and she goes all over the country so her voice is heard and message is heard. She's also a retired lieutenant colonel from the Air Force. And so that's just like cherry on top of the cake to a very cool career that she has built up. So really excited. Thank you so much for joining us here today, Tina.
Thank you, April. I'm excited to be here.
Very cool. Well, I know that we have about 20 minutes, so let's jump right into it. I think I want to lead this thing out with just kind of the big topic, that is on everybody's minds. We would love to hear from you. What does leadership mean to you? What should it mean to us as leaders within our community, within our client base, our sphere of influence, our team, our brokerage? What do you see as the biggest positive and the biggest drawbacks of leadership that can either propel us forward into huge success or cause us to hold back within ourselves as leaders?
Yeah, such a great question. And I think what's important for us is to start with the definition of leadership, right? Because a lot of people, when we think of leadership, we're thinking of outside of ourselves, leading other people, delegating, strategizing, motivating others. But what we miss is that it starts within, right? We get to lead ourselves before we can ever lead anybody anywhere. And so, what I find a lot of times is when people think of outside of themselves leadership, they start with actions, right? I got to change the actions that I'm doing to get a result that I want. And that's not wrong, it's just incomplete. Because what happens before we decide to take an action or not take an action? Any procrastinators in the house? Like, I'm recovering, so I can say that, right? And so when we decide, okay, I'm going to take this action, we know what to do, but we don't always do it. And so I got really curious along my career, and especially in the last like 5-6 years, of why don't we do the things that we know we're supposed to do? Like when we talk about real estate, and I actually co-created a real estate training company here in California. We co-created it 12 years ago. It's still going. So I talk with a lot of realtors, and one of the biggest things that comes up is they're like, the follow-up. I know that I'm supposed to follow up, right? But we don't always do it. Well, why not? Well, part of it is like, what do you believe about follow-up? Sometimes people say, well, I don't want to bother people. What's too much? What's not enough? I don't know. And so they're questioning themselves and they don't trust themselves. But what they actually don't trust is a belief about follow-up. When most of them are like, nope, it's too much. And so I'd love to just share a story real quick for your folks to understand, like this, I call it structure. It's our internal structure. Our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs drive actions that we take or don't take, and those actions give us results. And so I was working with a venture capitalist once who came to me and he said, hey, I really want to post on LinkedIn more. I'm like, that's great. I don't know why you're coming to me, but okay. So I was like, what is it? Like, why? Why do you want to post on LinkedIn? Because most people don't wake up in the morning and go, I just really love to spend hours on social media. Right. And so, but what was in his heart was he was like, I'm an expert in deep tech. I know deep tech companies in and out more than any other VC. And I can say that with confidence. And I'm like, okay, I'm sold. And he goes, I said, what's the issue? He goes, I don't like to talk about myself. I was like, okay. And in real estate, what do? We have to go out there and connect with people, right? We have to share what we do and how we can share value with them and how we can help them do better, find the better home, right? Get the better loan. Like why us versus someone else? And so I asked him, I said, okay, what do you believe about people who talk about themselves?
Mm.
And I'd love for folks that are listening to really just sort of let that sink in a little bit. Like, what do you believe about this thing that you're not doing? Right. And for him, he goes, oh, they're total jerks. Like, I don't talk about myself because I don't want to be seen as a jerk. And I just sat for a second and it sunk in for him and he went, oh, of course I'm not going to go talk about myself because I don't want people to think I'm a jerk. Right. So until he realized this belief was actually holding him back, he just couldn't put himself out there. But once he understood it and he was like, wait a minute, I don't have to talk about myself. I get to share value with other people that's valuable to them. Like when we were able to reframe that and he could reframe it and step into what was truly authentically different about him and how that benefited others, two folks who had been sitting on the sidelines for years, wondering how they might work with him, they came to him and they're like, we're on board. Let's start this venture fund that's all about deep tech, right? So these opportunities opened up for him that he didn't even know were there because he was holding himself back with the beliefs. And that's how it can play out for folks.
When you're talking about that, I see a really big parallel that I think a lot of people have of that line between having the confidence to be yourself and the confidence to portray yourself and having the arrogance to step over the line into arrogance, you know. And I think that that fear of, you know, portraying yourself in an arrogant light is oftentimes what will hold us back from portraying ourselves in a confident light. How do you tell people to toe that line and to really be watching and make sure that we're not pushing people away with arrogance in that?
Absolutely. That's so good. And it comes down to what are we focusing on ourselves? So when we put ourselves out there, it's vulnerable, right? It's a vulnerable state to put yourself out there and go, hey, look at me, I can help you. But what that's the issue right there is we think that we're like, hey, look at me. And we think to ourselves, what am I going to look like? How am I going to show up? What are they going to think? You know, and we have the focus on us. And it makes us have anxiety and fear around being seen, right? So we get to shift the focus, right? We can go, wait, it's not the focus on me. It's me focusing on them. It's just like with my VC client. He was like, I don't want to be seen as a jerk. Okay, but what's at stake for them if you don't share your knowledge and your expertise with them? What can happen for them? Right? And so there's two things. The biggest one is shifting that focus, that we are shifting the focus on how might I bring value to this person? That's the first thing. The second thing is be more interested in them than
Mhm.
trying to be interesting, right? And that by itself will elevate your confidence and dissipate some of this anxiety and fear that we feel around being seen. And some of the ways that we can do that, like it's easy to say, go do that, right? And then you're like, yeah, how do I do that? So when you're with them, ask questions, right? You don't have to come in and go, I'm the expert in this and I know this and I have this certification. Da, da, da. And they're like, that's great. How does that help me? Right? So you know that they're thinking, how does that help me? So just go into that. So how might I help you today? What is it that you're looking for? Why are you looking for that home, that neighborhood? What's important about that for you? Right? When you're asking them these questions, they feel important and they recognize that you care about them. Through the questions that you're asking them, you can share your expertise, you can show your expertise because you wouldn't, some people aren't asking them these questions. They're just like, yeah, I have these houses. You can go see this. I can take you to these neighborhoods. And they're like, oh, okay. But if you're sitting there connecting with them and asking deep questions about why something is important to them, they feel special, they feel seen and heard and connected with, and they're likely to go with you, even if you haven't given them a whole list of your credentials up front.
Yeah, I love that whole line of thinking. That's something that, I speak heavily to it with the team and lots of other people is if you always show up from a place of value and a place of active listening and a place of seeing, what can I do for you in your world? How can I be present for you today? They're not going to forget about the fact that you're a real estate agent within that, right? That aspect of it doesn't go away, but it's so good to take everything from such a me centric to a very value you centric type of a mindset. When we're talking about breaking barriers and what the top, 1% or 20% does differently from everybody else, right? That shifting of the mindset is the most powerful piece I really feel of that. And I think that one of those mind shifts that really needs to be shifted in order to break into being the top 1%, 5%, 10% in your market is having the courage to show up every day from a position of intentionality and value within your business. And there's a million different ways we could break down what that looks like and how we can show up every day. What do you recommend for your clients that you speak to or that you coach to? What's the best way to take an insecure mindset? Well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I'm not ready. Maybe it's not perfect. How do you suggest that we take that insecure mind shift and break that barrier into I am good enough? It's okay that it's not perfect. It's okay for me to take the step forward, even though I'm scared to do it. How do you shift that mindset?
Yeah, everybody deals with this, right? It does not matter if you are a billionaire or you're trying to make your first dollar. That comes up for every person, right? How I'm not good enough. What about why would they listen to me? Who am I to do this? Right? These things that it's this inner critic that we have, and we all have it. So, one, I just want to say, pat yourself on the back because you're human, right? We're just all this way. This is what happens. But here's what's really important. Most of the time, we are focusing on an outside strategy to cure these things, right? Tell me what to do and I will go do it. But we just talked about, no, you're not going to do it. And that's why you're not going to do it, because these things are coming up. So we get to do the inner work to shift that. And one of the ways that's so powerful to shift that is really to pay attention to how we're speaking to ourselves. Most of us are conscious most of the time about how we're speaking to other people. We don't intentionally really look at how we're speaking to ourselves and the questions that we're asking ourselves. So we talk about the 1%, right? And how they do things differently. There's two major things that they do differently. There's a lot, but I want to talk about two specifically. One is the visions that they hold in their mind. Because I didn't share up front, but I'm a neuroencoding specialist, a brain health trainer, and a transformational mindset coach. So I'm very interested in how are we wired? What's happening in here so that we can utilize that to our advantage, right? And have our brain body connection work for us instead of against us. And so the visions that we hold in our mind will create the things we're focusing on. What we're focusing on will become our reality. It's just the way our brains are wired. If you think of the billions of pieces of data that we are bombarded with every day, what do you think would happen if your brain tried to process every single thing that's coming your way? We would short circuit, right? It's like, does not compute, does not work. So our brain filters out things that are not within our focus. And a lot of times those things are possibilities and opportunities that can help us move forward, but we don't see them because our brain's like, yeah, that's not important. I'm focusing on this. Right. So if we're focused on, I'm not good enough, why would they listen to me? That's what our brain's going to be focusing on. And your brain's a Google search engine, really. I mean, if you think about it, your brain is like the ultimate search engine. What you put in is what you get out.
Yeah.
And so if the questions that we're asking ourselves are, why would they listen to me? I'm not good enough. I don't have this degree. I don't have this experience. This is your brain giving you answers to your question.
Yes.
All right. We get to shift the question and go, what do I bring of value? Well, then your brain's like, oh, well, you've helped so-and-so do this, and you help them do this, and you know this that can bring them value, right? So we are shifting what we're focused on, one, because of the visions that we hold in our mind, because our brains think in images, it's just the way we work, and the questions that we're asking ourselves, right? And case in point about this, how many times have you been working on a project, working on something, and 99 things go right, but one thing goes wrong? What do we focus on?
The one thing.
The one thing, right? And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. So we're naturally wired to ruminate on the one thing so that we can fix it and it won't cause us harm.
Yeah.
Well, there's no fixing. When we focus on creating what we truly want in life through the vision that we hold, through the questions that we're asking, which unlock possibilities and then give us clarity on actions to take, that is the direction that we want to go. It's not the way your brains naturally go, right? But neurons that fire together wire together. So the more that we're intentionally doing it, the easier it becomes. So it's not super simple to do it all the time, but it's a practice that we can put into play more consistently.
I love that. One of my favorite sayings is a vision without a plan is just a dream, right?
Yes.
And it's true. It's true no matter if we're trying to build out a business plan for 2024, if we're trying to come up with a new lead generation technique, right? Whatever it is that we're trying to break into, if you don't have the plan and if you don't have the, consistency behind it, right? It's just going to kind of become a vision and fall or a dream and fall by the wayside, and so really love where you've kind of gone with all of that on that side of it. If you could leave everybody here with one piece of advice on how you can really dig in deep to show up in their most authentic self every day within their community, within your database, what would it be? Like, where are we pulling that from for that person that is just kind of beating themselves down and God, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, I'm not getting ahead. Where do we dig from to pull out the confidence to really step forward?
Yeah. So there's an exercise that I share with a lot of my clients. And at first, people are like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do that. But you can. I would say sit down and write out 50 accomplishments in your life, 50. Most of us can get to about 20, 25, right? Maybe 30. And then we go, oh my gosh. But I want folks to really think about focusing on what you do well, what you do well, and not right. Like the language we use is really important. Right for one person is not right for someone else. And we can get stuck in this either or, right or wrong. That will keep us stuck, right? But if we see, what do I do really well? Maybe I connect with people really well. Maybe I help people make decisions really well. Maybe I help people decide what's most important for them. Like whatever it is that you do well, write it down and keep looking back at that and focus on what you do well. That changes the neurochemistry in your brain. It changes the way you approach things. It changes what you look for. We will start to look for things that are going well instead of things that are not. Because where focus goes, energy flows. So focusing on what we do well and building that up for ourselves, that is a key component for moving forward.
I love that. And it really goes hand in hand. Anything that you read about, top level leadership, wanting to become a multimillionaire, anything like that. I think that from what I've seen, and I know Tristan's a huge, proponent of this as well. Wake up every morning with gratitude. Write down 3 things, 4 things, 5 things. Have a notebook right by you and jot them down on the daily, right? Yes. And that really is one of the huge mindset shifts that we see in successful CEOs, that we see in really powerful leaders like yourself, like Tristan, whoever the case may be, right? And I think that it starts with getting that mind in the right spot every day, first thing when you wake up, and starting with gratitude.
I'd love to, if we have a minute, to just touch on that a little bit, because that is a huge point. I want to share a story with your folks. As a brain health trainer, we look at brain SPECT scans to see how the brain is functioning. And very quick story, because I know we have like 30 seconds before we go into Q&A. But there was an author who was writing a book about the power of appreciation. And she wanted to see, what does her brain look like if she's meditating in gratitude? Like, how is it functioning? How's it going? Right. And so she went to Dr. Daniel Amen, whom I'm certified through, and she said, this is what I want to do. He said, okay. So they did a brain SPECT scan, and she got to see her cerebellum, which is back here. It holds more than 50% of the connections to the neurons throughout our body that cause us to be in fight, flight, freeze, or rest and restoration and clarity, right? Both sides. And so it was working really well. It was white and fluffy, and it was just like, okay, this is great. So she had access to more of her memory, her coordination, what she already knew, right? Memory, how to put things together to solve problems. That was working really well. Then she said, well, I wonder what it would look like if I was meditating in all the things I'm fearful of or worried about. Right. And I know I can't see anybody on here on the webinar right now, but if you find yourself stuck in fear and worry and anxiety and doubt during the day, this was what she wanted to know what it looks like. And I'd love to share with you all, if I can just share screen for 1 second. Oh, it's not enabled. That's okay. If you're able to enable it, I can share with you what her scan actually looked like.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Because it was pretty fascinating to see that a part of her brain actually shut down. When we're in fear and worry, parts of our brain shut down, and we're not functioning well. We are not able to, hold on, I'm going to take this real quick and so I can show everybody. So we're not able to function at our best, right? And so what that means for us is we're starting behind the power curve before we even start the day, right? And so when we talk about making sure that we are in gratitude throughout the day, this is why it's so important. Can you see this brain SPECT scan right there?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, great. And so what happens is the cerebellum, this part that has the green arrow, you can see was white and fluffy. Everything was working really well, right? She's able to process information faster. But when she went back and did the scan, let me see if I can put there, for fear and worry, look what happened. Your cerebellum actually is not fully functioning. It's black. That area means there wasn't a whole lot going on there. So we go into this survival mode in our brain when we're in fear, worry, doubt, overwhelm, judgment, right? All of these things that put us feel like we're pushing the rock up the hill all day long. It's because we don't have our full faculties, right? We get confused easier. We don't process information quickly. It takes us more time. We don't even have access to information we already know in our brain, let alone trying to put more in there, right? And so understanding how we work and how we can shift, it'll mean all the difference for us.
That's super powerful to see it like that. Whoa. I
I know.
had no idea that there was an actual visual shift that happens, in the two different states of mind.
Yeah, because we can't see in our own brain, right? I mean, if we have a broken arm, we see it, we go, oh, that's not right. And we go get it fixed.
Yeah.
But in our own brain, until we can see it, it's sometimes hard to wrap our brain around, why is it important to shift? It sounds good and I feel better, but what's actually going on? We're actually more resourceful and we're smarter when we're in gratitude and other areas like compassion, courage, confidence. Right.
I love that. Well, that was awesome. And I love seeing the visual on it. I think we're down to about 5 minutes left. And I think that we're into the question and answer. She's not the most accessible woman, all the time. I mean, we've got to pay the big bucks to go see this lady speak and to talk. And just to have 20 minutes of your time is unbelievable. And thank you so much for doing this today. Did anyone have any questions for Tina before we jumped off here?
As questions are coming in, I did want to make sure I share with everybody a resource that they can use. I do have, I'll paste it in here. there's a micro guide to help you, a couple of questions that can help you really connect to the vision of what you most want to create in your life. Questions to help you open up and unlock possibilities that you may not see in front of you. And then questions to help you take those next steps. Even if it's one simple small action, you'll gain more clarity with one step, which will give you more confidence, which creates more courage. It's like this big cycle. So every time we take a step in the direction of our vision, we get more clarity, more confidence, more courage to take the next step. And I'd love to share this micro guide with everyone. Just 6 questions to just help you start taking the steps in the direction you want to go.
Awesome. Thank you. We did have a question come in. Hi, Starla.
Great.
She asked, who did you become certified by?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'll try to keep it short. So I'm a certified brain health trainer with Dr. Daniel Amen, neuroencoding specialist with Joseph McClendon III, who is an ultimate performance specialist. He's been with Tony Robbins for 30 years. Also transformational mindset with Dr. Daniel Amen, with David Bear. And then leadership and DISC with John Maxwell, as well as stakeholder-centered leadership coaching with Marshall Goldsmith. So I kind of ran the gamut. I looked at what do I think is important and went that way. So I have a PhD in life. It's like what I like to say.
Little bit of knowledge in literally everything.
Pulling it all together.
Just amazing. Cool. Well, it looks like that was the question that came in, and we appreciate that. Thanks for throwing that one out there, Starla. Excellent, excellent, excellent job today. So much fun to be able to sit here and to chat with you. If people want to find you, where is the easiest place for them to go?
Yes, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also connect with me on my website, leadoutsidethelines.com. I will put my LinkedIn here in the chat and the website link as well. And I'd love to hear from any of you who really just have this vision in your heart to create what you most want in life, and you want to clear the roadblocks that are getting in your way to doing that so that you can move forward faster, because there is a pathway. It's not that hard, and you get to step into it uniquely as your courageously authentic self.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for being on here today. We appreciate your time, and thank you for showing up for the Lab Code Agents community.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Take care.
Talk soon. Bye.